There is a legend about Porus that most of us have read in our childhood, one that showed how brave the king was. When Alexander the Great, the Greek king, decided to conquer India, he faced the strong opposition of the Porus on the battlefield. Porus was defeated, but then, he did or rather said something which has become a myth, an inseparable part of ancient Indian folklore. Alexander asked a defeated Porus how he wanted to be treated, and the proud ruler replied, "Like a king." Its veracity is unknown, but it is a tale which has been passed on from one generation to another in our country. Incidentally, the official website of the British Museum mentions this tale. In this video, we will take a look at the life of this legendary ancient Indian king. Porus, the king who impressed Alexander of Macedonian. Porus is mainly mentioned in the Greek sources for his battle against Alexander, but even those sources vary regarding the details about the king. According to Michael Witzel, a German-American philologist, comparative mythologist and Indologist, Porus was actually the king of the Porus, a marginal power in Punjab since their defeat in the Battle of the Ten Kings, a theory that Indian historian Hemchandra Rakori had agreed with. According to some sources, Porus, also spelt Poros and Puru in Sanskrit, was one of the last members of the dynasty of Puru, a clan known both in India and Iran and said to have originated from Central Asia. The clan families were members of the Parvatiya, mountaineers, mentioned by Greek writers. It is said that Porus ruled over the land between the Jhelum and the Chenab rivers in the Punjab region, and he first appears in Greek sources in connection with Alexander. He had a bitter relationship with the kingdom of Taxila, which was ruled by his extended family. As per some historical documents, the Persian Achaemenid ruler Darius III asked him for military aid against Alexander after his third disastrous loss at Gaugamela and Arbela in 330 BCE. Instead, Darius's men, sick of losing so many battles, killed him and joined Alexander's forces. Battle of the Hydaspes River. When Alexander, in his quest to conquer the world and India, crossed the Indus River, probably in Udapandapura, he was greeted by the then ruler of Taxila, Omphis Ambi, son of Ambiraj. He welcomed Alexander, became his vassal ruler, and aimed to subjugate Porus with the help of the Macedonians' military strength. The might of Alexander and his supremacy were accepted by many of Porus' rivals, but not Porus. Alexander realized that in order to conquer this land, he had to defeat Porus. In June 326 BCE, Alexander decided to cross the Jhelum River and enter Porus's kingdom. Several of Porus's rivals joined Alexander in his imperial move into the continent, but Alexander was stuck at the edge of the river edge because it was monsoon at that time and the river was swollen and turbulent. But that did not stop Alexander. While his armies clashed on small scale with the forces of Porus who were guarding the banks of Jhelum, he took his striking force and crossed via the headlands which were forested and provided cover for transit. He distracted Porus's forces and crossed the river without any opposition on a stormy night. Alexander entrusted Craterus to guard the base camp with cavalry and infantry and meet him at the appropriate time. When Porus came to know that Alexander had found a place to cross, he sent his son to investigate, but the son and his huge army were destroyed by the invading forces. Porus decided to face Alexander in battle and chose a sandy plain to take a defensive position. His infantry units were interspersed with elephants. Cavalry and chariots were stationed in the wings. The elephants were supposed to give Porus an advantage in the war. But the genius of Alexander and the timing of the battle resulted in the defeat of Porus. His archers became ineffective because of the monsoon rains and the muddy ground, and Alexander's troops took full advantage of the situation. The elephants were infuriated intentionally, and it is said that as a result, they stampeded their own troops. A fraction of the infantry escaped while most of the elephants were captured and the cavalry exterminated. Porus refused to surrender and fought until he was wounded and his force routed. In the meanwhile, Craterus crossed the river along with the mercenaries and butchered those who tried to escape. Despite being defeated, Porus' valor and spirit on the battlefield impressed Alexander, who allowed him to retain his kingdom, and perhaps even ceded some conquered areas to him. Porus became a supporter of Alexander, and held the position of a Macedonian subordinate ruler until he was assassinated, sometime between 321 and 315 BCE, by Eudemus, one of Alexander's generals, after the death of Alexander. Why do some people believe Alexander the Great was defeated by Porus in India? What evidence is there for that assumption? The English did it. Or rather the British Empire did. In the East versus West and superiority of the West narratives that pervaded colonialism and imperialism, the Greeks were presented as proof that Westerners were always superior to the East. Therefore, proving Alexander, i.e., the West, had been defeated by the Indians became an emotionally loaded question amongst Indians. A lot of effort has therefore been put into proving that he was defeated despite his biographies saying that he wasn't. I won't go into the question here. I'll just point out the irony that in fact Alexander, being Greek, was much closer in many aspects to India than to faraway Great Britain. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching.